Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are joining me on the planet. My name is June Allen from juneallen.net, and I teach African centered wellness, sobriety, and self love. And I'm the founder of Yard of Greatness. So, hello, everybody. I hope you're all okay. I hope you're all doing well. So, today's topic is all about anger. I want to talk about the gifts underneath your anger. A lot of us see anger as a negative thing. A lot of us as black women are kind of, it's used as a term to kind of silence us, the angry black woman and all of that. So I just wanted to come on and share with you about the power of your anger and 3 gifts that are underneath your anger. Hi, thanks for joining. So, but before I get into that, I have got some housekeeping. Okay, I've got some housekeeping for you. So, for those of you that don't know anything about my work, I'll just give you kind of like a little bit of a brief introduction. So, I came into doing this African-centered wellness work in 2009. I went into recovery from addiction to dysfunctional relationships. My thing was people. I was addicted to people. I just kept finding myself repeatedly in these relationships that just weren't good for me, that were abusive. So I went into 12-step recovery, and the process was amazing. Had a great time going through everything even though it was hard. But what I realised was there was no cultural context to it. There was no cultural context. And so I then became obsessed with trying to figure out how me being a black woman was part of this conversation, and how my, being, having a history of, my family came from Jamaica, which was Jamaica was a slave farm for so many years, trying to figure out how that could become part of the conversation and part of my healing. And as soon as I just started reading loads more books and started doing a lot of my own work, went to therapy, started training as a therapist and all of that kind of stuff, the light bulbs were just going off, and so many boxes were getting ticked, and kind of making sense as to why, I behave the way that I do in my relationships, the way they were, and kind of what I've noticed and seen from other people in the community that struggle with similar things. So, it was great, and hence, this platform was born. So I just started sharing a lot more openly and honestly about it, and people really identified with a lot of it. So I just feel really honoured and blessed to be able to share my story with those of you that are still struggling and that are looking for solutions around around your wellness. So that's a little bit about me, if you don't know any of my work. So I'm just going to share a little bit of housekeeping. So next Sunday is Mother's Day in the UK, and for a lot of us, it's great. You go and hang out with your mum. You talk about how fabulous she is, and then you move on. You honour her. But there are many of us that don't have great relationships with our mum. Hi, Malika. I have got you on my to-do list today to message you. So look out for my message later on. I need to message you about stuff we talked about on Saturday. Not all of us have great relationships with our mums. And so Mother's Day can be quite a painful experience for a lot of us. So one of the things that I've created is I've created a Mother's Day, how to survive Mother's Day. If you've got a difficult relationship with your mum, whether you're still in relationship, still in time, still in contact with her or not, it can be really difficult. It can be really, really difficult what to do. Should I send a card? Should I not send a card? Should I celebrate it? I don't want to be fake. You still got unresolved stuff. Your mum might still be being abusive. For what it is, it's those things are real for a lot of us, and sometimes it can be quite isolating for a lot of us, because not a lot of people get it unless they're actually going through the same situation. They're not going to get it. They're going to give you all of that stuff around, oh, you've only got one mum, and she was a victim as well of racism. She's got and all of that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? It happens all the time. I hear all of these things all the time, and so it's important to have these conversations. And so what I've done is I've actually created is a masterclass, and I go through I answer loads of questions about how to manage Mother's Day, how to take care of yourself leading up to it, how to make the decision whether you want to celebrate Mother's Day or not. what to actually do on the day and actually how to take care of yourself after Mother's Day. So if you think this is something that is going to benefit you, then you can click the link in the bio, go to heal.juneallen.net, that's heal.juneallen.net, that's heal.juneallen.net. Not only is there stuff in there around Mother's Day, there's also a masterclass around boundaries for wounded daughters, and some other bits and pieces in there as well. So yeah, if you're struggling with your relationship with your mum, then click the link in the bio and there's loads of information in there. You're welcome, Malika. Yes, I have to do this every year. I come out and do the wounded daughter stuff because I know how important it is. And I do, most of the women that I work with, as you know, they have had struggled with different things around their mum. And so it is important for me to show up at this time of year, when it's UK Mother's Day, to support the ladies that are, that have, where maybe they've worked with me in the past and still struggling, or new ladies that are struggling and looking for solutions. So there is help out there if you want it. Okay, so click the link in the bio if that's of you. The second piece of housekeeping is that the Ghana retreat is happening in October this year. So if you haven't already signed up, there are only 10 places to come to Ghana in October. So again, all that's in the click the link in the bio to get all that information. The Ghana retreat is specific around return to self. It's a racial wellness retreat. So not only are we going to be talking about who you are as a black woman, but we're going to be talking about, how racism externally has impacted your relationship with your mum. There is a little bit about that in the masterclass that I've done, but we go into it in a lot more detail in the Ghana retreat. There's one of the workshops that I do talk specifically about Dr. Wilson's work. Have I got her book to show you? No, I've been doing some work with it at the moment, so I think it's probably in the other room. Dr. Wilson's work. She's a psychotherapist. But yeah, so she there's a essay that she wrote about in her book, The ISIS Papers, and she does talk specifically around the relationship with black women and their mums. So I use that chapter as a discussion to create a workshop so that we can really look at that stuff, how important it is. So that's, and there's so many other things as well. There's a family constellation, there's a goal setting thing, there's a really beautiful compliment card process that we go through every day. There's yoga, there's chakra meditations. There's so many amazing things that happen in this retreat, and it's just 5 days of sheer and utter gloriousness. It's a 5-star hotel that we stay in as well, in Accra. And last year was the first one that we did. My business partner and I, Faith Agugu, hosted it, and it was just such an amazing experience. I mean, we were just blown away by the hotel and the amazingness of it. So we can't wait to take some more of you ladies out there. So if you've been thinking about coming to Ghana, or you're looking for somewhere to come and hang out and do some of the internal work and stuff like that, then you can join us on the retreat. The last thing on the housekeeping list is on the 28th of March. Is save the date. You need to save the date for the 28th of March. Last week we did I did the inner child workshop, which was so beautiful. I haven't done any of this. I hadn't done a sister circle since November, and it was just so beautiful just to see all the ladies again. Liz is saying, I'm sad I never got to finish it at all, but I will. It was so helpful for me and the others. Do you know what? That's the reason why I recorded a lot of this stuff around the wounded daughter stuff. I recorded a lot of it so that you can go back and watch it whenever you want to. There's no, you kind of go through the work as you need to, and you're in a different place now. So, this is one of the reasons why, I do record a lot of this stuff, so you can go back and watch it. And you can revisit it when you need it. And there is going to be some more stuff I'm probably going to update in that as well. So there'll be a lot more stuff. So the next sister circle is going to be on the 28th of March, hoping that everything's going to be okay. I don't know what's going to be happening with this coronavirus or whatever, so we'll see how that goes. But the next one is going to be called Secrets, Lies, and the Black Woman's Right to Rage. One of the things that came up in the child workshop was, what do you do with all the emotions? Obviously, when you're doing inner child work and you're thinking about the relationship with your parents, or lack of relationship with your parents, there is a lot of emotion attached to a lot of it, and a lot of the ladies found it, when I spoke to them about not just the inner child work, but the next chapter in the book that we're studying, which is the All About Love. Again, that's in the other room. All About Love by Bell Hooks. The next chapter is all about secrets and relationships, lies, not just relationships, love relationships, but she also talks about how, we're taught as black children to learn how to lie. We learn as children. And how we take that into, it becomes almost like a survival thing, and so we take that into our adult life. So we're going to explore that, and we're going to talk about the impact of secrets and lies in our lives, and talk about anger. We're going to talk about the black woman's anger, the black woman's right to rage, as a result of the secrets and lies that we've told about ourselves, the secrets and lies that we've internalized, and how we can actually deal with it. So the link to actually get tickets for it is not actually live yet. I'm still working on some things, so I haven't actually, not live yet. But so you just save the date, the 28th of March. Hopefully, God willing, if there's no coronavirus drama going on, then then it will continue. So that's it. That's the last bit of the housework. So I have 3 requests on this broadcast. Number 1, if you know anybody that might be interested in this topic around the gifts underneath your anger, share it with them. If you have any questions or anything about anything that I'm going to share, please drop them in the comments below, or you can send me a direct message and I will support you from there. The last thing is to remember that this broadcast is not a substitute for therapy, so it's important that you see a licensed mental health professional. I'm not quite there yet. I'm still a student. It won't be long before I'll be able to say I'm qualified, but at the moment I'm still a student psychotherapist. So I offer peer group support, but obviously I'm not quite licensed yet. So it's important that you see a licensed mental health professional if you need that. So there's all the housekeeping and all the other legalities and disclaimers out of the way. So, for those of you that have just joined, my name is June Allen, and I am the founder of The Yard of Greatness, and I teach African-centered wellness, self-love, and sobriety. So today's topic is all about 3 gifts underneath your anger. 3 gifts underneath your anger. Now, as I was saying in the beginning, at the top of the broadcast, anger can quite often be, something to be feared, something that we don't really want to deal with because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. We've been taught, especially under the system of racism, as black women, that we're not allowed to feel angry, and often we'll be shamed for being called. They'll use saying that thing about, the angry black woman or whatever, to kind of silence us or to shut down our feelings. But what I want to share with you is, with all of those difficulties in building a relationship with anger, with trying to understand your anger, there are 3 beautiful gifts that come out of it, and that's really what I wanted to share. So the first thing that I want to talk about is unmet needs. Okay, so one of the first reasons why you feel angry in the first place is because your needs are unmet. That could be in your relationship, whether it's a love relationship, whether it's a relationship with a parent. Within the context of Mother's Day and stuff like that, it might be that your mum was not able to give you what you needed. She wasn't able to hear you because of what other things that are going on for her. She wasn't available to you. So, those unmet needs that you felt might not just be as a child, but also as a grown woman, that those needs were not met. And so it feels so difficult. It feels so difficult to be able to build that relationship, to be able to have that bond with her, and that's really painful, And it might also be that your boundaries were crossed as well. It might be a situation where your boundaries are crossed, especially if we're talking about it within the context of living under the system of racism. For a lot of for black women globally, our boundaries are crossed all the time. The anti-blackness, the disrespect that a lot of us as black women have to put up with on a social level, the microaggressions. Okay, so having our needs unmet, because obviously our culture is not. Is often demonized and we're often shamed for who we are as natural people with natural hair and whatever it is. We are demonized as black women under the system of racism. And so our core needs to be accepted in society for who we are, those are needs that are unmet. But the gift inside that is understanding that once we're able to take responsibility for that truth and own that truth, that's when we can really begin to take action around the things and be around other people that are going to meet our needs. So Full Circle Music saying, are you angry with yourself and your creator? No, I'm not at the moment. I'm just, you're asking me personally, or I'm not really sure why you're asking that. But I used to be really angry with myself because I didn't understand what anger was. I didn't understand, I didn't have a relationship with my anger. So at one point, yes, I was angry with myself, and I was angry with God for the condition that us as black people continue to struggle with. But moving forward, I found that the gift in that is actually I'm able to make changes and find people that can meet my needs. I have an amazing network of people because of the pain that I was in around not having my needs met. I realised that I needed to find other people who were going through the same sort of thing as me, that I could trust, that could hear me, that were able to meet my needs. And so that's the gift. The gift is you have to make changes. You know, you have to make changes. So Full Circle's also saying, with you wearing all these white people makeup, oh, do you know what? I ain't got time for this rubbish today. I ain't got time for this rubbish today. I'm just gonna, just 1 second. Okay. Okay, so, yeah, I just had to block this person. This person is just starting to, you know, our ancestors wore makeup in Egypt, you know what I mean? So this person's trying to tell me that I'm wearing makeup like white people. How is my makeup like white people? Anyway, I ain't got time for this foolishness, so I've blocked that person. So, yeah, it's just important to, once you understand where your boundaries have not been met, or your needs have not been met, that's when you can start to make really important changes for yourself. And you can do the things that you need to do to get your needs met. You know, yeah, like I was saying, people were practicing their silliness. It's people are just looking for an outlet. Do you know what I mean? People are looking for an outlet to project their rubbish. But do you know what? That person's, whatever reason, people that are behaving that way, they're in pain for whatever reason. Do you know what I mean? But my ancestors wore makeup in Egypt. Like, so what? How is my makeup white? In what capacity is my makeup white? I've even got you see the flick of the eyes. Look at that. Like, you can't get more Egyptian than that with the flick of the eyes. How is my makeup white? Anyway, I think it's quite funny. Moving on. So the second gift underneath the anger, okay, is a call for compassion. Okay, it's an opportunity for you to define what compassion means to you and to actually start to practice it. You know, to actually start to practice it. And it's sometimes what happens as well underneath the anger is in our relationships, there might be situations where that person triggers a lot of shame in you because you might not have very good self-esteem. And I'm talking from experience as well. You know, when I didn't have very good self-esteem, other people would say things to me and I would just go into a lot of shame because I actually believed the negative things of what they were saying about me. I believed the negative things that they were saying about me. And so I would go into a lot of shame, and I just found it really, really difficult to just not, you know, like this person who was just saying this rubbish. I would take that really personally, and I would find it really, really difficult to kind of stand in who I was because I'm so, you know, my worth was so externalized that I wasn't able to hold my own. You know, I wasn't able to hold my own in relationships, you know, with anybody. And so with the shame and everything there, my anger was actually a defense mechanism because I didn't know how to deal with I couldn't know how to cope with the feelings. My anger was a defense mechanism to kind of protect myself from the vulnerability that I was feeling with those people. So the gift in all of that is an opportunity for me, for number one, to set boundaries, and number two, to have compassion for myself. You know, I've had to learn how to be kind to myself. I've had to learn how to be compassionate with myself because a lot of times, you know, living under the system of racism or living around being raised in an environment that wasn't always that compassionate or whatever, it's hard to be compassionate to yourself when you're not used to being around other people that are compassionate, because you don't learn it. You just, you're in that constant state of hypervigilance, and kind of, or anxiety, wondering what the other person's going to do, what your caregivers are going to do, what your siblings are going to do, or whatever it is. There's this constant feeling of, I don't feel safe. Okay, but what I've learned in doing this work, and in recovery, and really sort of drilling down in kind of building a relationship with my anger, is that my anger is not my enemy. My anger is not my enemy. My anger is there to teach me that my boundaries have been crossed at some level. My boundaries have been crossed at some level, and there's an opportunity for me to be compassionate to myself first and foremost, to self-parent and be compassionate to myself, and to ask myself, like I did in number 1, what are my needs, and then to take action around that. Set some boundaries. Are there people that I need to maybe distance myself from? I need to detach myself from. Are there are there places that I go that are shaming? Are there places that I go that are quite shaming? For me personally, I found the church quite shaming, and that's not to disrespect anybody else's religion, but for me personally, I found that the church, it was quite shaming. And I think that even inside the church, you got white Jesus and all the rest of it. That for me was something that it would trigger stuff inside me that was not healthy. It would trigger stuff inside me that was not healthy. And even in that, in the Christian religion, racism is used to kind of to oppress. Okay, and that was very shaming. So I found that it wasn't for me. For me, I choose now to have African spirituality as a form of connecting with my higher power, and I connect with my ancestors, and I do it through that way. And I guess, it's like I was saying, it's not to disrespect anybody that does choose to practice that. That's obviously your choice. But from my experience, it was important for me to practice self-compassion and to connect with my higher power in a way that felt right for me. It was important for me to really be honest with myself about the areas in my life that were triggering, that were shaming, that I didn't feel that were that compassionate towards me, and to shift those areas so that I can stand in the truth of who I am. I could stand in the truth of who I am. So the third thing that's a gift underneath the anger is completion. Now, what I mean by that is, a lot of times when we're angry, especially if the anger feels like it's ongoing, it quite often means that there's stuff there that's unfinished. There's stuff there that hasn't been spoken out. There are truths there that are not being honoured. There's a lot of stuff there that's kind of been suppressed, So whether we're talking about under the system of racism where black women are not allowed to say and be and do the things that we really want to do, we don't have the autonomy to be fully living our best selves under the system of racism, because there's so many different ways that we're oppressed. Or it could be within a relationship with within your family system, where, the family system may have been very controlling. Maybe you've got parents that were really controlling, but you weren't allowed to speak up. You weren't allowed to be seen and heard. You weren't allowed to talk about or express yourself as a black woman. There were so many different ways that oppression has been recycled within the family, and then the family unit has become a place that's unsafe, a place that's controlling, a place that's abusive. All of these things are ways that our anger can get built up. And so when that anger is not expressed healthily, it gets stuck. And then it just becomes something that it either gets internalized, either you begin to hurt yourself with it, or it can get displaced and projected onto other people. So not only now are you hurting yourself with the anger, you might start hurting your children, or you might start you might start hurting you're saying things to your partner, and it might not be necessarily physical. It can be verbal. It can be, might be shaming your partner. It might be passive aggression. There are so many different ways that anger shows up in our lives and in our relationships. Sometimes internalized anger can, within us as well, can show up as addiction. It can show up as food addiction. It can show up as drinking. It can show up as smoking too much weed, or whatever it is. These are all ways that we suppress our anger, and we have got a lot to be angry about. I did a live stream last week about it's not up there now. It's only available now to the women in my group, but You know, I talk about, you know, why black women were so angry, and I went into a lot more detail about that, and the importance of understanding that actually we do have a right to be angry, and it's not about trying to suppress the anger, it's about channeling it into something that is going to transform, that's transformative. Use that anger to empower yourself. Use that anger to join us, maybe join a social justice group. Use your anger to be creative. Use your anger to write poetry. Use your anger to, you know, there's so many different ways that you can transform it. But it's important that that anger is clean. It's like I was saying in the live stream last week. The anger is clean and it's not built up and suppressed, because, you know, the law of the universe is about completion. It's about completion. So when you feel angry, it's important that you honor it. You own the anger. Yes, I am angry about ... Okay, and then what are you going to do with it? You know, maybe you might need to go to the gym. It might be that you need to have a conversation with somebody about it. It might be that you just journal about it, because the person that you want to have a conversation with about it is not emotionally available for that conversation. They don't have the capacity to hear that conversation. This is why so many of us kind of get trapped in anger around our parents. You know, obviously Mother's Day next week. This is an opportunity for you to think about that dynamic. If you find yourself constantly being angry around your mum or around your parents, the reason why that anger is continuing is because you keep going to them and expect them to be things that they just don't have the capacity for. They don't have the capacity to hear you because they may not be doing the healing work like you are. So you can't expect them to have the capacity for it if they're not doing this work. And even though it's painful because you keep going back to them, wanting them to hear you, to understand, to own, you know, you might be waiting for an apology from them and they can't give it to you. You have to find a safe space to be able to do it. You know, Malika is saying anger definitely manifests physically and also can trigger illnesses because of internalizing too long. The body is a big revealer. That is absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. And it does manifest physically. You know, a lot of people talk about you know, how black people are, you know, they've got black don't crack and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of us we might not show it on the external. We might look good on the external, but internally, either we might suffer from mental illness, we might suffer from depression, and you know, there might be things like fibromyalgia, you know, physical pain, whatever it is. And I can testament to that. I know when I'm doing too much, or if I'm not taking care of myself or managing my emotion, I can physically be in a lot more pain than I should be, because I'm not actually doing the work. You know, I'm not actually doing the work. Let's have a look. So Meander Marisol is saying, do you think forgiveness is an important part of processing anger? That's a really good question. Okay, so what I'm going to say about that is, I think that anger is crucial. Is one of the most important parts that gets left out of forgiveness, because I think people jump to forgiveness too quick. And when people jump to forgiveness too quick, that's not forgiveness, that's codependency, that's people pleasing. And oftentimes I think that people jump to forgiveness too quick because they can't sit with either they don't know how to process the anger, they don't have a safe space to process it, or they can't sit with the anger, so they go, oh, let me just forgive them and then I can just suppress the anger because they don't want to feel it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you process the anger with that person that you're upset with, because they're not necessarily, they can't necessarily hear it, like what I was saying before. But I think in order to really forgive, this is my personal thing, in order to really forgive, I think you have to be able to process the emotions around why you were angry in the first place. And forgiveness is a part of it, because forgiveness comes with acceptance. Forgiveness comes with acceptance, and you can't accept something when the anger is the energy telling you that it's incomplete. There's no completion. Yeah? There's no completion. So you have to have the acceptance, and the forgiveness is at the end of the process when you've had the completion. The anger is there to tell you that something is still not right. The boundaries are still being crossed, or that person can't hear you. You yet haven't found a safe space to be able to process the anger and the upset. And the anger and the upset is not your enemy. They're your friend. They're there to tell you that something needs to shift. Something needs to shift in the way that you're communicating with this person. And like I said, most of the time, It's because a lot of us don't have a safe space to be able to share. And this is one of the reasons why I do what I do. Some people choose to do it in therapy. I've had loads of therapy. I've had more than 10 years worth of therapy. Or you can go, you can go to a group, which is how I started doing this stuff in recovery. And then I transformed all of the stuff that I learned in recovery to making it African focused. So I took all the stuff that I learned doing 12-step recovery and all my addiction work, and I translated it into a language and to make it culturally appropriate, to make it culturally focused, so that for us as black people, you understand it within the context of living under the system of racism. So, and you know how everybody loves to say that black people forgive everybody. Black people have to forgive. Black people are being oppressed and abused. We're not allowed to have all these feelings, but yet we're the ones that are supposed to forgive everybody. That can't work. That can't work. And I believe that's why so many of us as black people have so many struggles with depression and mental illness, because I personally believe that depression is anger without the fire. Depression is anger without the fire, Malika saying that was a good question. And yes, we do skip to the process and then we struggle to really accept and forgive. 100%. 100%. And I think that, people struggle with, they're so quick to say, oh, you have to forgive that person. You have to forget, you have to let it go. Meanwhile, there's all this anger inside of us. And then what happens is then we shame ourselves. We shame ourselves for having the feelings because we've not been taught how to deal with them. That's probably one of the most important things that I always try to drum into to us as black people, because we've been taught as black people that, number one, we're not allowed to have feelings, and we're not human. We've been dehumanized for hundreds of years under the system of racism. So we're not allowed to have feelings. We're not allowed to express, especially anger. We're not allowed to express anger with each other or within the wider community, because at the end of the day, white people generally are probably scared that we're going to do to them what was done to us. So that it's in their interest to kind of contain our anger. So then what happens is we take it out on each other. It gets recycled in relationships. It gets recycled in the way that we parent. So our children are getting it. Our children are getting abused and getting hit and all the rest of it. But really what that is there's a pressure cooker of rage that a lot of us as black people don't know how to deal with and that haven't dealt with it. And that anger is not going to go away by itself. It's not going to go away by itself. It has to go somewhere, because as human beings, anger is a natural response when our boundaries have been crossed. And our boundaries are crossed every single day. Whether you're going and looking on social media and you're seeing black people getting abused, or, you go into the workplace and you might experience microaggression, or whatever it is, there's going to be stuff going on at some level, because racism is everywhere. Racism is everywhere, conscious and unconscious. And it's for us to really, when you start to build a relationship with your anger, okay, when you start to build a relationship with your anger, that's when you can really transform it. And that's the gift. That's the gift of anger. Anger is not your enemy. Anger is there to get you to take action in a way that's constructive. And that's productive as well. Whether we're talking about social justice or whether you're talking about your own healing. When I get angry, I know that there's, not only do I, if it's something that's immediate, if it's clean anger, something that happened today and I'm angry about it, I need to go in my journal, or I need to call speak to my therapist or speak to somebody in recovery or whatever. I need to process it, because that stuff needs to come. It's energy. Anger is energy, and it needs to come out. It needs to be released. So, some really simple things that you can do around anger is, you can do physical exercise. Physical exercise will transform the energy in your body. Don't just talk about it. Talking is one part. But if you think of, anger is energy, like in a pressure cooker, you need to physically release it. So you can do it through exercise. You can do it. Sometimes I'll beat the bed. I'll just go in my bedroom and start pounding the bed and just keep going until you just pound it out. And that's the way that the energy comes out. And quite often, what comes out as a result of doing the physical stuff is it might be grief under there. It might be sadness. And that's what you need to get to. A lot of us are so stuck in the anger because we're not used to releasing it. That's kind of what drives us. That ends up what's driving us. We don't get to the grief and the sadness and the hurt underneath it because we're trapped in the anger, because we live under the system of racism, and that stuff is constantly being triggered. You know, we're constantly in a state of anger and rage, and we don't know how to deal with it, and especially if we're repressing it. You know, so it is important that the relationship that we have with our anger is honoured. We have to respect our anger. That's the gift. You have to respect when you respect the anger, that thing can be powerful. But a lot of us, because we've not been taught how to deal with it, and even some of our parents, we only know anger as a form of abuse. You know, either we've been abused by it, by parents that used to hit us or whatever, or we experience anger through the lens of white supremacy. So we don't have a healthy experience of anger. You know, we don't have a healthy experience of anger, but anger can be something that can be used for good, that can be used to transform our lives if we take the time to listen to it and honour the fact that yes, how it's been used to abuse us. We have to process that and deal with that. But also, when we do that, then we can start to use anger and understand anger for the powerful tool that it is as human beings. It's a language. It's a human language that we have to learn. You know, and if more of us as black people learn how to harness our anger, you know, it could be used for so many more positive things. But you have to start building that relationship with anger within yourself first before you can start to do it. Because otherwise it's just going to continue to get projected, you know, dysfunctionally onto other people. So that's the thing. So that's it for today. I don't know if anybody else has got any other questions. I'll just quickly do a recap and run through the three reasons why we get angry and what's the gift. So the first one was unmet needs. Okay, unmet needs. A lot of us have unmet needs around anger. And the gift in that is that you're in the truth. You're in the truth of who you are, and you have an opportunity to speak that truth and to talk about the boundaries that have been crossed around those unmet needs. The second gift in anger is it's a call for compassion, a call for you to self-parent, a call for you to honour who you are as a human being, regardless of what other people are doing. The gift is when you can start being compassionate to yourself. That's when things can be transformed, because you're seeing your own humanity, and actually that will ripple out into your other relationships with your children, relationship with your spouse, your partner, your husband, your wife, friendships. But it begins when you start having compassion with yourself. Okay, so that's the second gift of anger. And the third gift of anger is completion. Completion. You're being called to complete the cycle of, you know, what happens around the anger. Completion around the stuff that's repressed, and, you know, the grief that you haven't felt around certain things. You're being asked to complete those things. Grief is part of the completion. You've lost something, whether it's your job or a person or whatever it is. You've lost something, and, you know, grief is quite often what's underneath a lot of our anger as well. So giving yourself permission to feel your feelings and feel the anger around the loss, that's the completion. Will you know, once that completion is done, then you're making space for, you know, for the balance to come back in your life. Okay, so that is really, really important. Thank you so much for joining me today. I don't take for granted that you choose to hang out with me. If you've got any questions, or, you know, maybe you don't feel comfortable to share it in the comments below, whether you're watching me live or on the replay, you can send me a direct message and I will support you from there. If you know anybody else that's interested in, you think you've benefited from this broadcast and you think somebody else might benefit from hearing about the stuff that I've shared today, then you can share it with them, tag them. Okay, don't forget to click the link in the bio. Go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. If there's any other things, you know, if you're interested in joining me for the Ghana trip, or the Sister Circle on the 28th, or any of the Mother's Day things, you're welcome. So you're welcome, sis. You're welcome. Thank you so much for your questions and your comments. I really, really appreciate it. I hope all that stuff was really helpful. Again, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. I'll be sharing a lot more about Mother's Day stuff throughout the week. So make sure you click the put on your notifications so you're aware of when I go live. So thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you again next time. Take care. Have a good day. Bye.